We start off at Gotham Harbor. One detective is talking to another. Russell, who's been on the force for about 30 years, hands an envelope to the youngster that he has personally helped mentor. The two are in this car. Really nice Buick. He often makes the joke that this car is older than him. Even though they've never been partners, he's always been very particular fond of the kid. That's why he's trusting him with this information he's about to bestow upon him. The young man, Tom, who's only been on the force about a year, wouldn't you want to hand this to Bullock since he's your partner? Kid, next week after I retire, he won't be. Harvey's a good man, but he's too much into the broken system that is the GCPD. I need someone that has years ahead of them. Finish what I started. The mole I planted in Falcone's organization is going to help. He goes, you have a mole? Who? He says, this information I'm going to keep to myself to protect you. I'm really going to miss you, Russell. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have made it as a cop. He says, don't get sappy on me. I'm still going to call and check on your progress. He looks over at him. He says, goodbye, Russell. Tom exits the vehicle, but in walks Butch Galzine. Butch Galzine is Falcone's #1 guy. His bodyguard. As for Tom, he's sold out, just like many of the GCPD. Butch takes Russell's own weapon and points it at him. He says, drive. And he drives right in the middle of this construction zone. Now, special note, this is going to be very important for later. This whole area has been bought by Wayne. And now it's about to become a crime scene. Butch gets out and sets the whole car on fire, burning Russell alive. 1 week from retirement. In the morning, Harvey Bullock gets information that his partner's car has been found by the Gotham dock, burnt to a crisp. The forensics hadn't come back yet, but they know it's him. The information already out there is it was faulty wiring. And he gets to the crime scene and Harvey's just looking at the crisp, burnt body of the car. He goes, Russ, what the hell did you get yourself into? The only thing that was left was getting a statement by Wayne. A limo pulls up with the Wayne emblem. Out walks Lucius Fox. And he talks to Harvey Bullock, telling him Wayne Enterprises will cooperate with the GCPD as much as they can. Now Harvey knows there's nothing he can say. He knows the truth. His now former partner got too close to Falcone. And look what happened to him. If you don't go along with the Falcone narrative, you end up like his former partner, dead. Butch walks in Falcone's house, holding his daughter Sophia. Butch says, I found her at the club. She was drinking all night. Falcone doesn't say anything. He just has that typical look on his face, like, not again. He puts her to bed and speaks to Falcone about what happened last night. He says, a cop was trying to build a case against you, boss. We took care of him. So he hands him the envelope that the old man gave to the kid. He says he has an informant in our crew. If there is one, I'm going to find out. Then I'm going to kill him. Mind you, Falcone hasn't said a word. It's not what he says, it's what he doesn't say. And his facial expressions usually tell everything. He opens it, and it's just one big question mark. Butch goes, what does that mean, boss? He crumples up the paper and throws it in the fire. He says, the question. Russell knew he was going to get betrayed. Comb out your entire crew, he says. You see, the question is a really good detective. Some say he's the smartest in Gotham, but he knows how dangerous this is. Going against Falcone takes a little bit of a, let's just say, the question is the most intelligent man in Gotham, at least until certain kids grow up. The smartest thing he ever did was not reveal his name. He doesn't even have an office. He works out of different random places all throughout Gotham, working under a mask. There's no other person that has put more of Falcone's guys behind bars. And these are lower level street guys, and he's slowly but surely working his way up. Falcone isn't naive. He understands the threat. He says to Butch, "Comb out your crew. Russ wasn't lying. There is a mole in our organization." Then we cut to the Wayne Enterprises building, where at least 50 construction workers are protesting. Now, Rick Kane, who has an office in Wayne's building, goes to his window and starts to taunt his employees, saying he'll pay them when the job is done. Thomas Wayne's limo pulls right up. His butler, who is secretly his bodyguard, advises Thomas, "You might not want to go out there." Thomas says, "These are Kane Construction employees. I know some of them by name, so technically I hired them." So he walks out and he says, "What seems to be the problem? Mr. Kane hasn't paid his employees yet." They tell Thomas the problem, and he looks up at Rick and says, "Didn't I give you $1 million deposit?" And this is where we see what type of guy Thomas Wayne is. He understands why they're all upset. He stands on the limo and speaks to them all. He goes, "Does anyone have a sign I could borrow?" So he starts to protest at his own building. Rick yells, "What the hell do you think you're doing, Tom?" He says, "We're family." Thomas says, "I knew something like this would happen hiring my father-in-law, but this isn't personal. This is business." He goes, "I'm sorry, but I have to side with the people that aren't even done with my medical facility yet. These men and women are going to be the first step to healing several people. So from a business point of view, this has to be done." Thomas mentions to them all, "If he doesn't pay you today, I will personally pay you. But it's the principle of the thing. Plus, we're going to double that since, as of last night, your work area has become a danger zone. And these people are loving Thomas. Why don't you all come in and talk to Mr. Kane yourselves?" So they all walk in, and they all wait in front of Kane's door. He refuses to come out. He just slides his checkbook under the door. He says, "You all are welcome to have breakfast in our dining area." This is why Thomas is one of the most beloved people in the city. He's about to launch a free healthcare system that he is looking to expand, and it starts with that facility down by the bay. Thomas's younger brother, Philip, walks up to him with a coffee. "It's going to be that type of day now, isn't it?" he says, showing him the new products reports. Thomas signs off on them and says, "Please send our condolences to that police officer. Give his family what he would have gotten from his retirement." Philip says, "That's good. It'll make excellent PR. A man died last night in a horrible accident. A husband, a father. Empathy, my brother, empathy." "You're starting to sound like Dad," he replies. Lucius walks in and fills in Thomas on the situation by the bay. He was the vice president and the only one besides Thomas he had to answer to. Oh, how he hated him. We cut to Falcone's mansion where he's holding his weekly meetings with his investors. They sit around a table with a map of Gotham on it. This is the most expensive game of Monopoly you have ever seen in your life. Arnold Wesker sits there and contemplates. Falcone sees his hesitation and says, "You have not made a move in weeks. Nothing interests you?" Arnold apologizes and makes a bid for an old apartment complex in the Narrows. Arnold is the most quiet one of the group, very socially awkward, but that's what Falcone likes about him. Very easily manipulated. Victor Zaz, who had inherited his family's fortune due to his parents' we'll say demise, questions Arnold's choice in properties. No one buys in the Narrows. The value will never go up, and no one wants to risk so much street game for such a little reward. Mr. Richard Sionis interrupts. "Those streets may be more money than anything." Victor smirks and replies, "That's the stock market you were lucky enough to get into. If it wasn't for that, you'd still be a street captain." "You disrespectful little punk. It's guys like me that pave the higher ground for people like you to walk on," he says, pointing at the map.
You didn't notice this because you were in a crib with a silver spoon in your mouth. It's all about the streets, kid. Respect it. Enough, gentlemen, Falcone says. It's still Arnold's turn. Arnold is scared of confrontation. It's okay, Arnie. Me and Mr. Zsasz just had a little bit of a disagreement. It won't affect business. Both Zsasz and Sionis raised their champagne glasses in solidarity, like the confrontation didn't happen. Falcone places a marker on the building Arnold just bought. Mr. Wesker, in good faith, I would like to invest in some hired help for your new business operation. Sionis smiles big. Ha! I knew you loved the streets. He looks at Arnold. I too would like to help. I'm gonna give you one of my best guys, Tommy Bones. Arnold doesn't know who this guy is. He's never met this Tommy Bones guy. Sionis assures him he's good for business. Me and Butch grew up with him. Butch, who's in the back, is guarding the door, nods and says, Tommy will get whatever you want done. Jim Gordon is not having a good first day at the GCPD. He gets screamed at by the Commissioner Loeb, saying he had zero right to arrest a man off duty. He broke the law, so I arrested him. Jim defends, pointing out to the cells where the guy was being kept. He then reminds him there's such thing as a citizen's arrest. Loeb mentions that man has never been arrested before. Jim responds to this by saying, because no one has had the guts to do the right thing and arrest him. You see, Commissioner Loeb is strongly in Falcone's pocket. On the way out of the commissioner's office, he literally runs into Harvey Bullock. He tells him to watch it. Harvey expects to get into a heated confrontation with this rookie, but Gordon apologizes, saying it was his fault. Loeb opens the door and sees what's going on. He tells Harvey, glad you two are getting along so well. Meet your new partner. This doesn't please Bullock. He just lost his partner. He wasn't looking for a new one. He barges into Loeb's office and says, what is this, a buddy cop movie? Loeb instructs him to show the newbie how Gotham really operates. Keep him out of trouble. Also, keep him out of my eyesight. Jim says, I heard a lot about you. I look forward to working with you. Bullock is just honest with him and says, you will be dead by the end of the week, if you're lucky. Back at Falcone's place, it's Richard's turn to place a bid. He says, you know what property I want. What he's referring to was the old nightclub in the center of Gotham. Richard tells him back in the day, Cobblepot's was the place to be. Not to mention it was one of the top money makers. Falcone says every single week you say the same thing, and then so do I. About 30 years ago, Mr. Cobblepot refused to join the table. He was a good religious man who had shut down his club because, in his words, led to making men horrible. He noticed the people that went into his establishment were married, and they were dancing with other people like they weren't. Falcone and him were close friends, but business is business after all. He gave him the option to leave Gotham. If he did, his family would be watched out for and immune to anything he might be considered horrible. To protect his family, he left 20 years ago and hasn't been seen since. Falcone still leaves a seat open for him just in case. He starts to think about him and then looks at the empty seat. Butch, he says, it's time to put a Cobblepot back on the board. Jim isn't saying much, just listening to what his partner has to say. Harvey says you need to learn how to take an envelope of money. Soak up your pride so you can live another day. Gordon points out how crazy this sounds. Harvey responds with, welcome to Gotham. He tells him to get some rest. Tomorrow, I show you the sights. Harvey drives off. Gordon walks to his car but is grabbed by 4 masked men. They toss him in a van and shut the door. One of Falcone's top street captains was a guy named Sal Maroni. He also owned one of the best Italian eateries called Bamonte's. Come for the breadsticks, stay for the ravioli. Today he was counting the money he's been collecting, stacking it up so. Butch Galzine walks in like he always does and takes it. Every day he does this, but it doesn't mean it's not easy for Sal. He is visually upset every single time. In the kitchen, there's a dishwasher being yelled at by the restaurant manager. Lou, you are disgusting. No wonder your daddy left you, Lou says, berating the young cobblepot. Oswald apologizes, but that wasn't good enough. Lou throws a plate against the wall. The funny thing about this, Oswald is the only person at Bamontes who hasn't broken the law or done anything wrong, trying to provide for his mother. He's not the criminal he grows up to be yet. Butch hears yelling coming from the kitchen. With his very large frame, he almost knocks the door down. He sees Lou yelling at Oswald and grabs him by the collar. He then pulls him out of the dining area and tells Oswald to follow. Butch then tosses Lou on the table in front of Maroney. With his fists like hams, he lays a few punches to Lou's face. Butch says to Maroney, this kid Oswald is Falcone's new investment. That's why we sent him here to work with you to begin with. Maroney pretends to be shocked. He's the one that told Lou to treat Oswald so poorly so he would quit. Obviously, he is failed. Maroney looks down at the bloody restaurant manager in front of him and says, "Shame on you, Lou." Patooey. Butch then picks Lou back up and stands him up, giving Oswald a quick lesson on how to hit a guy. Butch instructs him to strike Lou as hard as you can. The people in the dining area aren't fazed by this. This is one of the reasons why they come to Bamontes. There is always a fight. Oswald clenches his fist, thinks of all the times Lou has been cruel to him, and throws the first punch he has ever thrown. Oswald hits Lou so hard, he was sent crashing to the floor. Falcone wants you to show him the ways and how to do things. Teach him to do things above the streets. Salvatore reminds Butch where he came from. We grew up together. You are from the streets. And look where I am compared to you. Train the kid. Jim was taken to a location just under the mayor's office. He barges out of the van. Surprise, there's the mayor standing there with his trademark smile. Out of respect, we're just going to call him Mayor West. He apologizes and says we had to do it this way, but we couldn't take any chances. Many eyes and ears. But he's been chosen to join his group. A bunch of individuals committed to rewriting the law. Mayor looks at him and says, "Welcome to the Society for Justice." Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. If you like our content, please hit that like, subscribe, and as always, follow the road sign.